And we're going to start this series off with a little bit of information on the interface. You can definitely go to the CAD Clips web page on the Revit CAD Clips page and search for the word interface. And we've repeated many lessons on the Revit interface. So have a look there on our website if you want. In the meantime, we'll start up here with the application pull down, which is I call the big purple R. So if you pick on there, and this is typical now, we're seeing this in most software and PC based, is they have a little icon up here and you click in there, and that's where we have our options to say new. And within new, if you just kind of pause over it, you'll go over to here, and you'll also get some really nice tooltips that'll pop up at different times, depending on what you're hovering over. So in Revit, our files are called projects. So we can create a new project by picking on here, and then the idea from there is to create a project and select a template file. So if I say new project, what it's going to do here is prompt me to pick one of my predetermined template files. Once again, we've already talked about project template files in a previous series, so I'll let you have a look at that and how to set it up. So I'm just going to hit cancel on here. So back to the application pull down, you can say new project, you can say new family. If you start a new family, which is kind of like an AutoCAD block or a cell in MicroStation, so if you pick on the family button, then you're prompted to pick a family template file. If you're going to make a detail family or a duct family or a lighting family, a lighting fixture, generic models, these are all the different family template. Look, RFT. So if you're going to pick a site family or a spotlight or structural column family, right? A stiffener, a truss, window family, right? Inside of here, you can type a letter like D for door, and there's a door family. So if you want to create a custom family, you start with the right template file. And at this point, we're not anywhere near there, but we're just kind of covering the interface here. So back to our application pull down, new project, pick a template, new family, pick a template, new conceptual mass. And what happens if you pick on here is it defaults to this particular folder in here. Okay, depending on if you're set up for metric or imperial, you can go back and pick on here and then go the metric route. And there really is only one option for a new conceptual mass, and it's using this .rft file. That's a conceptual massing template file. So we're not going to create a conceptual mass, but that's how you do it. That would be very similar to going down here and saying new conceptual mass. If you pick on there, you're going to get exactly the same reaction. And I'm just going to hit cancel on there. Now back to my application pull down, back to my new button, new title block. If you want to create a new title block, you click on here and it's going to prompt you to pick a family template file, at which point you can again use the metric or imperial options by backtracking here a little bit, and inside of here you can see it shows you little previews of the different sizes. So it's nice to have all of your title block families set up so that when you bring them into a project, they're ready to go. And these title blocks are different sizes, and they can have different logos and text and information and all kinds of neat stuff in there. So I'm just going to cancel once again. Back to my application pull down, new annotation symbol. So this is another family, and what happens if you pick on here is it goes to a different folder, same place, but the annotation folder, and then you can go in here and create a new view title tag or a room tag or a generic tag. So these are annotation, mostly tagging objects that you could go in and create your own custom section head or your own custom door tag. These are the template files that you would use to do that. I'm going to hit cancel on there. Over here. So that's our new button. Then we have open. Okay, we can open a project, which prompts us to open an RVT file, and you just simply browse to wherever you want to go. If you say open a family, it prompts you to go browse and pick a .rfa family. opens any Revit file type. So if you're undecided, you can pick on here and it will let you open either one of these. Building component opens a building component, an ADSK file, and this is a file that comes from Civil 3D. So that's how you open that type of file. If someone exports and gives you a nice IFC file, you can go in here and say open the IFC file. IFC options will come available depending on what file you're in. Sample files opens the Revit sample file folder. Isn't that nice? So if you pick on here, open, it defaults to our wonderful samples folder, and we've already copied our sample files out to a different folder, but that's kind of new to Revit 2013, I believe, to be able to have that permanently there so that you can go and have at least a file to look at. A lot of people, when they get started learning Revit, one of the biggest things is, show me a project, show me something, and I can get an idea of it. So this is all opening files, right? Once you're inside of a project, I'm just going to click out here. Once you're inside of a project and you say save, it simply saves it. You'll also notice that there's a save option up over here that's going to show up. Okay, still talking about the application pull down. Inside of here, you can export. So if you're inside, depending on what view you're in, you can export CAD formats, DWG, DXF, DGN. A lot of this is disabled right now because I'm not in a project. So this is the just another form of taking information and pushing it out to a file. So we can export to a DWF file and it'll prompt you for some information. Export to an ADSK file. So instead of opening an ADSK file from Civil 3D, you can export to a Civil 3D file. You can export to an FBX file, 3D view. You can export to a family type, exporting family types from the current family to TXT files. Interesting thing we may cover later. Exporting as an IFC file, sure. Exporting to an ODBC database. Okay, so this is really handy where you can start to export stuff to a database file. Images and animations, you can export depending on the view that you're in. You can export a walkthrough video, okay, a solar study, which is an animated solar study. You can also export images, again, from your view. So this is all under the export option over here. And then if you see, there's a little bit more here. Exporting a report, so you can export one of your schedules that you've created, and you can export room area reports as well. So again, once you're in a project, this stuff becomes a lot more available. And then at the bottom here we have options and export options for CAD. So you can go in here and set up how your layers are exported if you're exporting to a CAD file. This is where you go in and define the Revit element components or element parts and categories, and how you, when you export to an AutoCAD or a DXF file or a DGN file, what layers it puts those on, and again, some options on when you export as an IFC. When you go in here and export as a CAD file, okay, you just go in, but you cannot do any layer mapping. That has to be done down here first. So if you're going to export to a DWG, a DXF, a DGN, or an IFC, you should go in here and have a look at this stuff first. Okay, still in my application pull down, we can go here to publish, and publish is a little bit different from exporting, and you can publish to Buzzsaw, and you can publish different files to Buzzsaw. So Buzzsaw is kind of an Autodesk's FTP site. It's quite nice. You need a Buzzsaw account. So there's a DWF, a DWG, a DXF, a DGN, and a SAT file, and these are all just file formats, but there's an automated system here to publish your file or views, etc., to Buzzsaw in these different formats. So anyone who's done any Buzzsaw stuff, printing, you click on here and you can hit print. You can do a print preview, or you can just go in and do your printing setup. So that's really nothing new. Licensing information, if you want to know what's going on, if you're on a network and you're going to borrow a license, etc., you can do that inside of here. You can return a license early, and you can just get your regular license information on here. And then if you hit close on our application pull down, it just closes this particular project. If you are not in a project and you click close, it actually closes Revit. Okay. So this close button, if you have multiple projects, it'll close the current project. Only one project can be current. However, you can open several projects and several families. So that's kind of the rundown of our this part of our application pull down. But over here, you'll notice there's two little buttons in here. Open Documents will show you the files you have open. So once you have multiple files and families open in Revit, it's very nice to be able to pick on here, and you can see that quite nicely. And it doesn't show you the views, it actually shows you the projects, as opposed to picking on the View tab over here and then going over and saying switch windows is a little bit different, because this will show all the views, whereas if you go into here and pick on here, it only shows you the project. So if you want to move from project to project, this is a good way to do that. And then inside of here, if you pick on here, it shows you your recent files, the files that you've most recently opened. And if you pin them, what happens is it stays there. So if you pin these 3 particular files, every time you go to your application pull down and you pick on this little button, these guys are going to stay here as this list grows. Okay, so these are quite nice. 2 options inside of there. Then we have our options button inside of here, and I've talked about this in some previous lessons, and I encourage you to go have a look at our other videos on the options and view properties and view templates series that we've mentioned. So I have covered this in a previous little Revit mini series, so I'll let you go through and have a look at that. So that's all off here of our application pull down. And finally, we have exit Revit. If you pick this, of course, it closes Revit. And if you have files that have not been saved, it will always prompt you to save and synchronize with Central, etc. if you're using Workset. So hitting this exit Revit is the same as hitting this big exit button up here. Okay. And again, it will act a little bit differently when you start to get into opening up a project. So back here in your recent files, if you simply pick here, it opens the file. So all you have to do is a single click here on any one of these and it'll launch that file. Similarly, if you pick on any one of these family files down inside of here, it'll launch that as well. Okay, so and then a single click on here will start a new project based on these templates. If you hit open here, it's the same as going here and picking, just pick on this word open, and then it'll give you all the different formats right inside of there, and it goes to the last folder. And of course, we place one of our folders up in here in a previous lesson by going down inside of here. So that's just a quick rundown of the application pull down menu, and we'll be using that throughout all the different videos.